A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a significant development, European Union countries have reached a preliminary agreement to lift economic sanctions on Syria, a move aimed at assisting the war-torn nation in its recovery following the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. This decision, which has been confirmed by several diplomats, is set to be formally announced during a meeting of foreign ministers in Brussels later today. The lifting of sanctions comes on the heels of a similar announcement from the United States last week, indicating a broader shift in the international community's approach to Syria's new leadership. The sanctions, which have long cut Syrian banks off from the global financial system and frozen central bank assets, have been a point of contention and debate among EU member states. While the agreement to lift these restrictions is a step towards rebuilding the Syrian economy, EU diplomats have made it clear that the final decision rests with the foreign ministers, who will convene to discuss the implications of this significant policy shift. The new leadership in Syria has been vocal in its appeal to the West, urging for an easing of sanctions to facilitate the country's recovery from years of despotic rule and civil strife. The humanitarian impact of these sanctions has been profound, with many citizens suffering from lack of access to basic services and economic opportunities. However, EU diplomats have also indicated that while some sanctions may be lifted, the bloc intends to impose new individual sanctions on those deemed responsible for inciting ethnic tensions within the country. This comes in light of recent deadly attacks targeting the Alawite minority, raising concerns about the potential for renewed violence and instability. The EU's approach seems to be one of cautious optimism, balancing the need for humanitarian assistance and economic recovery with the imperative to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. Furthermore, while the sanctions on banks and central assets may be lifted, other measures targeting the Assad government and prohibiting the sale of weapons or equipment that could be used to repress civilians will remain in place. This dual approach reflects a nuanced understanding of the complex political landscape in Syria and the need to support the population while still applying pressure on those in power. The recent decision to lift some sanctions follows the EU's earlier steps in February, when it suspended restrictions on key economic sectors in a bid to stimulate growth and recovery. However, officials have made it clear that these measures could be reimposed if Syria's new leaders fail to uphold their commitments to respect the rights of minorities and move towards a more democratic governance structure. As the situation in Syria continues to evolve, the international community will be watching closely to see how these changes impact the lives of ordinary Syrians and the overall stability of the region. The lifting of sanctions could potentially pave the way for increased investment and support from foreign nations, but it also raises questions about the accountability of the new leadership and their commitment to fostering a peaceful and inclusive society. In conclusion, the EU's decision to lift sanctions on Syria marks a pivotal moment in the country's post-Assad era. As the foreign ministers prepare to formally unveil this agreement, the hope is that it will lead to a brighter future for the Syrian people, one that is free from the shackles of oppression and violence. The international community's role in supporting this transition will be crucial, as will the commitment of Syria's new leaders to uphold the principles of democracy and human rights. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.